Well, howdy folks, and welcome to the channel. Today we will discuss how you can tell a client that their budget is too low. Overcoming clients' budget constraints is a difficult task in almost any business scenario. Almost every potential customer you have, regardless of what service or products you are selling, will have some idea of what they are willing to pay for those services or that product. Over my years, I have also learned in most of these cases the consumer does not always think of it as a budget per se. Usually they just have some figure in mind of how much they think it will cost, and you know what? Those figures in their mind come from many different sources. Sometimes the cost factor in mind comes from some research on the internet. Sometimes that number is a number they heard from a friend or family member, and sometimes that budget comes from what they heard from your competitors. These are all things to keep in mind, and they need to be considered closely when you are thinking of how to approach your client when you need to tell a client their budget is too low. I could just give you 4 or 5 easy steps, simple things to say or some good words to use when talking to your customers in these difficult conversations. But knowing what to say does not mean you get to close the sale. Did you hear that, folks? The plain hard truth about the matter is that there is a huge difference between selling and closing the deal. You can sell to your heart's content. You can read all the scripts and even memorize them. But if you cannot effectively close the deal, you will not be too successful. If you just blurt out some fancy sales verbiage, then you are basically telling the client, well, just go away. I can't help you since you have no money. Case in point, a client calls and asks how much it costs to do a specific type of job. Your first inclination may be to blurt out a price, but you should really know what the client wants to spend first. The first question you should be asking is something like, what kind of a budget do you have in mind, Mr. Client? Now, if your typical price point for that type of work is, let's say, $2,000, but the client says his budget is $500, what do you do? For this case study, if you just say something smooth like, you know what, Mr. Client, I know $500 is a lot of money, but we always start these types of jobs at $2,000. Well, you have probably just lost the client. I know. Empathetically, repeating the customer's budget to them is a good tactic, if you will. The problem, though, is it is a sales tactic and is often way overused. I always try to get to the logic of the budget before I try to overcome it as an objective. Mr. Client, I know $500 is definitely a lot of money. What would you expect in return for a budget that size? Now listen closely to what the client says. If they start giving specific details to the type of work that they want performed, they may very well have spoken with one or more of your competitors already. But that does not necessarily mean the competitor is going to do all that work for the $500 budget. It just means the competitor told them what they could do for them for whatever amount they quoted them. If their details of work to be done are vague and they mostly have an end result in mind, not the specific details of how to get there, then their budget may be based more on research, hearsay from friends, or even based on prices they heard in the past. Now would be a good time to further engage the client and ask them how they came up with that particular budget amount. Asking this will give you more information, allowing you to formulate a plan that becomes a win-win for you and for the client. If you believe the client has been speaking with competitors and has derived that price point from those discussions, then the battle of overcoming that lower value may be as simple as saying something like this. Mr. Client, I know $500 is a lot of money, and I know a lot of companies can get started with a budget of only $500. Our preference, though, is to provide a quote that will work within a budget that will encompass the entire scope of the project and get the job completed in a timely manner without cost overruns or having to come back asking you for more money all of the time. In most cases like this, we would recommend a $2,000 retainer, but I know that it's quite a bit higher than you had expected. I think I could put together a proposal for $1,000, which could still accomplish those same goals and objectives. Would you be able to work with a budget like that to ensure the job gets completed to your satisfaction? Now sit and listen. This is key. If the client has their mind dead set on $500 budget, you only have 2 options. Option 1 is to have a good idea of what services you can provide for that as a secondary option for them. Or option 2 is to bow out graciously and thank them for considering your company. I run into these lowball pricing techniques by competitors all of the time. They tell the client we can get started on that for $500 or $1,000 or whatever arbitrary number they have in mind. Many times their mindset is that they just want to get some money up front and will use a huge portion, if not all, of that initial retainer getting started. Meaning they go out and do some preliminary work, do some internet searches, prep for the job, then tell the client they are ready to get started and they need further retainer resources. And, well, since the client is already invested, they end up finding some way to come up with more money so the job can hopefully be completed. Myself, I think this is a very low and dirty trick, but I know, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that do just that. So I do have a lowball option for the client for cases like this, but it is not a get started scheme. It is a presentation of actual work we can conduct for the client. Most of the time we are looking at the average job costing the client $1,000 to $2,000 and covers 10 to 20 hours of field work. But if the client simply cannot go above $500 on a budget, we can go out and do a short day or two of work with minimal reporting, just provide a brief update of what transpired. I would address the client in this type of case with something like this. For this budget, there is a way for us to make some of our services fit. What we can do, Mr. Client, is then let them know what they will get for that $500. Or perhaps like this: Mr. Client, we are happy to make this recommendation for you to fit within your budget. Then explain what you can provide to the client. You could try an approach like this: Mr. Client, is it all right if I get back to you with a revised proposal? However, from my experience, if you let the client off the phone, they will most likely call one of your competitors. Then when you do call back, well, they no longer need you or your services because they have hired someone else. I also always try to steer away from telling the client what I cannot do and only talk about what I can do. Never use negative words in your sales conversation. For instance, I try to not say something like this: Mr. Client, I don't have anything that is going to fit your budget exactly. Myself, I would rather just get to the point of what I can do for the customer. Mr. Client, if you're willing to adjust your budget a little bit, we can actually still work on these key items for you. And of course, if it is just not doable on your part, if there is no way to fulfill the client's needs within their budget, you may have to just bring the conversation into the focus of reality. Mr. Client, unfortunately, this is the best we can do. We are not able to currently go any lower than this, but I do understand money is tight for everyone. Then you wait. Play the silent game. The client will usually either thank you for your time or will continue to talk to see what you can do with a higher budget. Another way to bow out gracefully is something like this: Mr. Client, after analyzing your needs, I really don't feel you have allocated enough budget to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish here. Now, if you would like to know how to use OSINT, open source intelligence, to find a person's social media accounts, then check out this video.